Freedom is not free. Discover what it takes. It's time to tap and move forward.
Hello and welcome to Tap and Move Forward. I'm your host, Lynn Shelley. I met today's guest when I was in a coffee shop and I asked him about his Semper Fidelis tattoo. He was an active Marine for over 20 years. He is originally from Oklahoma, where he was raised on a farm, learning to embrace the suck as a way of life. As a Marine, he pursued excellence in every job and had additional duties like small arms instructor and black belt instructor trainer. For today's skill set challenge, Gary Jobe talks about using the basic instruction given as only a jumping off point. And during the interview, he even shows me how I have no grounds to complain about not getting more training. It is up to me to learn what I am interested in. What do you wish you were trained with better? Maybe you think you should have gotten better weapons training. Maybe you wish someone would have given you lessons on how to build your credit. Whatever it is, take time to research something that you're interested in. I consider myself to be highly curious and a natural self-learner, and even so, I still felt upset that I didn't know more about the human body. I always thought it was something that should have been included in high school as just basic good knowledge. So for today's challenge, I did some research. I purchased a book on anatomy and physiology, and I've started reading it and plan to continue to read a little bit every single day. What do you want to learn more about? Take the challenge. Tell me what you want to study and what you are learning more about and training yourself on the Tap and Move Forward social media sites. Now, the interview with Gary Jobe. Why did you join the military and how old were you?
I was 19 years old when I joined the Marines. Initially joined the Marine Corps Reserve in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Why did I join? When I was a kid, there were still a lot of, World War II, vets, around there, in their 50s. And so there were a lot of them around. And I was very interested, in hearing what they had to say. Even as a little kid, I just really enjoyed, talking to them. One of them that struck me in particular was when I was a little kid. I was skating at a skating rink one time when I was a little, I was like 6 years old, whatever. And this guy worked at the skating rink, and I got run over by several people. And my hand got all smashed up, and I was bleeding and everything. And
What?
yeah, it was like 6 years old. Okay, this is like 1971. All right, and this guy come running out there, and all these kids are out there skating and stuff, and he come out there and just scoop me up and run me back into there, where all the skates, where you get your skates and stuff. And he immediately, he just started bandaging up my hand, cleaning it, scrubbing it out, bandaging up my hand. And somebody that worked there said, well, you really seem to know what you're doing. It was just like automatic, and somebody said, yeah, you were in Europe, weren't you? During the war. And he said, yeah, I was a medic, and, when we went into, France, invaded France. And even as a little kid, I didn't know, anything about that. But I was impressed about how he just came out there and, took charge, and he got me all bandaged up, and, it impressed me. So as a little kid, excuse me, I started, reading up on, World War II. And really took an interest in it. And when I was in school, when everybody else is in the cafeteria eating, I would eat and I would run down to the library and I would start reading about World War II.
Wow.
Yeah.
In your lunch break.
During lunchtime, yeah. You had 30 minutes for lunch, so I would eat, real fast, and I'd head on down to the library and I would start, reading about World War II, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I just thought it was really cool. And I always remembered that guy. And I started thinking about, that guy, and I figured, he was probably right around my age, back then. There's not a whole lot of World War II vets around now.
Right.
And I started thinking, at that time, he was probably about my age. And, it's kind of interesting thinking about, where I'm at now. And that's where he was. And it really struck me, how he knew what he was doing instinctively, not even thinking about it, so that really is, I think that's where it started with me.
So why did you choose the Marines?
Well, pouring through all those, World War II books in the library, you see the flag raising, in Iwo Jima, and the island hopping campaigns, and I don't know, the Marine Corps really struck me as like, that's the group I want to join, right there.
It was almost just like a natural alignment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it really was. I pretty much made up my mind. That's what I was going to do, one way or another. So when I graduated from high school, went to Tulsa, my cousin and I walked into the recruiter's office and got the ball rolling. My cousin went active duty, and at the time I was doing auto body repair. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to join the Marine Reserves and just go active duty later on if that's where it goes. So I became a tow gunner, tube launched, optically tracked, wire guided missile launcher, which they kill tanks. That's what their purpose is. And I joined the reserve unit there in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and I enjoyed that MOS a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun shooting that tow missile. So I did that for a couple years, and then I ended up moving down to Arlington, Texas. And I continued to, commute back and forth once a month, back up to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, until it just got to the point where, I think it's just, I'm going to have to go ahead and transfer down to Regimental Headquarters, 14th Marines, which is artillery. And I made that transition down there, transferred down there, and I had, as much as I hated to do it, of course, I had to give up my MOS because they didn't have tow gunners down there, not in artillery. So I had to do a transfer my MOS to motor transport. And I enjoyed, motor transport a lot. I enjoyed the unit a lot of good Marines down there. We did a lot of good training. And so it was, after I was there for a couple years, I ended up, going active duty. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got started.
What made you decide to go active duty?
Wanted something more.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was working for a glass company there in Arlington, Texas. And I liked the work and everything, but it was like, when I would go to my drill meetings once a month, and then my 2 weeks in the summer, I really enjoyed, doing that Marine thing. And I always look forward to, the next month and everything. So I wanted to do that full time. So I went to the career planner, there at the headquarters building, and told him I wanted to go active duty. Well, he told me they're not taking any reservists on active duty at the time, but I could go on what was called FTS, which was full-time support, which is basically you're a reservist on active duty. Mm-hmm. And what they do, the role of the FTS Marines are, you're an instructor. So wherever, there are schoolhouses, as we call them, located, at the different Marine bases, that's where you would be an instructor. So I applied for it and got it, and they sent me out to Camp Geiger, which is located right there on Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Went to Camp Geiger, and I transported Marines, in and out of the field a lot. And then also they needed instructors to be TOVOC instructors, Tactical Vehicle Operators course. So I taught Marines the Humvee, how to
Cool.
right, how to operate the Humvee, how to maintain it, and things like that. And that was interesting in and of itself because I worked with a lot of new Marines that were going through infantry school there who'd never had a driver's license before in their life.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking like, you know, these new Marines who grew up in Chicago, New York City, you know, where they rode public transportation everywhere they went. So it was it was interesting. Sometimes, you know, by looking at their face as you're driving down the highway and you have like these big logging trucks coming towards you, you really had to watch their face because sometimes the look on their face was pretty scary in and of itself. And so yeah, it was a good experience teaching those Marines. I liked getting up on the platform and teaching Marines. It was good stuff.
So was the transition into the military really natural for you? Was there anything that surprised or shocked you?
You don't know. I've thought about that. And I mean, I knew going into the Marine Corps was, you know, there was going to be some unpleasant experiences, but that's just part of the job. You know, it's just, you have to embrace the suck, as they say.
Right.
You know, a lot of uncomfortable, you know, times you just kind of deal with. And as far as being shocked, no.
Do you think there was something about your life beforehand that was just natural, kind of the embrace the suck kind of mentality?
Yeah. Right. Oh, right. Yeah, that was one thing that I noticed when I was going through recruit training out at MCRD San Diego. I noticed that some of these recruits, and then also when I went through infantry school right after boot camp, that I knew that some of these guys were like from LA, you know, in the bigger cities, and had never done anything really physically strenuous. Whereas I grew up on a farm in Oklahoma, and so I knew what it was like to, you know, I had my hands around a postal digger a few times, okay, putting fence up, you know, so I knew what physical labor was.
Okay.
So as far as the physical aspect of boot camp and infantry school, you know, I wasn't the biggest guy there by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a mental thing. And I got myself through physically demanding things just by telling myself, I'm not giving up. And I used to see like a lot of these bigger, you know, guys who from the cities and stuff, they struggled. They really struggled. So no, I didn't struggle in that aspect.
Working on a farm too, I would imagine that there's a fair amount of times that you understand that you have to do things that you may not want to do.
Right.
But there's a bigger picture as far as something relying on you. And so it just has to get done.
It has to get done. There isn't any, I don't feel like doing this.
Right.
You know, it's got to be done, you know, so you've already got it in your head that, you know, that's part of the deal. So anything the physical, whether it would be, you know, humping up and down, you know, Recon Ridge or Mount Motherfucker down there at Camp Pendleton, you know, helmet, flak jacket, pack, weapon, you know, you're humping up and down out those, you know, those mountains out there. And it's not a question of, you know, whether I want to do this or not. Is you just do it. You turn your mind off and you put one foot in front of the other. Literally, that's what I did. So that's what got me through the physical part. And it always did, even carried throughout my career. Anytime things got physically tough, you don't think about it. You just put one foot in front of the other and you keep going. That's what did it for me.
If you were giving advice to somebody that was newly enlisting, what would it be? Or because we haven't talked about this yet, but I know you became a recruiter. Was there a piece of advice that was your favorite to give to somebody as they were enlisting?
Actually, I was a prior service recruiter, so I dealt with a lot of prior service Marines.
Oh, okay.
So I recruited them back in.
Okay.
But I always told anybody who was interested in, you know, say joining the, you know, the Marines or any branch, you know, going to recruit training, all that is they're not there to kill you. You know, they're not there to beat you down or anything like that. They're there to train you. And they want they want to make you the best you can be. But they're going to be tough on you. They're going to shock you. I know what I went through. The things that you're going to see and the things that you're going to do and the things you're going to hear are going to shock you. I mean, I grew up in a good Southern Baptist home, where swearing, was not allowed. And so, I mean, I think that was probably the biggest thing for me was...
The biggest shock?
Yeah, it really was.
Was swearing being added to your life?
It was. I mean, of course I'd heard, vulgarities before, but not to this extent. It was, that was, especially one of our drill instructors, he could string together some real vulgarities that would... Yeah, it was just leave you with your mouth open, like, holy crap, did he just say that?
Have things changed over the years?
I haven't been around, the depot, in a long time, the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in a long time. I mean, even when I went through recruit training, there were certain things that they weren't supposed to do, okay? But I think that they've gotten a little bit tighter grip on that now. I'm sure it's still very challenging, but it's still very tough.
Yeah. I know swearing is very restricted in the Air Force side of things, but I don't know how much they control it in other branches. But I mean, we always think of the Marines as being more vulgar just by nature, but I actually think that the military, there's a fair amount that swearing is just part of the way that...
It is.
It's just part of communication.
It gets your attention.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me. It was a real attention getter.
Yeah.
And I think that, said out of anger, or said, trying to be funny, it's an attention getter. And that's the way I always looked at it. I know I did my fair share.
Of swearing?
Yeah, I try not to do it so much anymore. But yeah, I always figured, I know from where I came from it, or how I went about it, I did it more as humor instead of anger.
Yeah.
If I let some flow of vulgarities, proceed from my mouth, it was usually you would get laughs, from Marines around me, and that was really why I did it, but like I said, I don't do it as much anymore. I know that when I transitioned into the civilian world, there was one guy that I worked with at this one store that I was at, and there weren't any customers in the place, but I was talking to some of the other, employees in there. And I see him laughing to himself, and I looked at him, I go, what's the matter? He goes, do you realize how many times you spew out the F-bomb in one sentence? And I started laughing, I go, no, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot. He goes, you do it a lot. So I realized since I retired that I was like, yeah, I kind of need to reel that back in a little bit and not do that so much. So yeah, I kind of got a grip on that a little better. But yeah, Marines are very good at doing that. Yeah.
While you were in the Marines, did you deploy?
No, I did not. I came very close, but it just wasn't in the cards for me, and I wasn't happy about it. But that's just the way it went. During the Gulf War back in 1990 and 91, I was an instructor out of Camp Lejeune. When the war started, a lot of us instructors were not real happy that we were in a non-deployable status. And the colonel there at the school flat out told all of us, he said, you're not going anywhere, so don't try putting any administrative action forms, because I'll shoot it down. We need instructors here for all these new Marines coming in from Parris Island. And so just get that out of your head right now. So, and that war was over pretty quick. So, we all just went on about our business. As far as, this global war on terror, I was on instructor duty with 4th Landing Support Battalion up in Fort Lewis, Washington, training reservists. And I was supposed to go. And then at the last minute, the colonel there at the within the battalion, our boss, he said I wasn't going to go because I had a job to do there, training these inter-unit transfer Marines coming in from other units that did not have matching MOSs. So I had to stay back and get these Marines trained up so they could deploy to go over on the next pump. But they said the next bunch that goes over, you're definitely going. So I was very happy to hear that because I wasn't happy at all. Excuse me. Then next thing you know, I get a call from the Special Assignments Monitor out in Headquarters Marine Corps. And he said, seeing how you've not been to the drill field or recruiting duty, you're going. I wasn't happy about that. But you can't deny orders. Otherwise, that leaves a black marker on your career, and you're not going to get promoted if you go denying orders. Besides that, it's just not going to happen. So I ended up getting orders to recruiting duty and ended up going, and that was the end of that. I got out here on recruiting duty, and I actually told my boss when I first checked in, sat in his desk across from him, he's giving me the welcome aboard, thing, and I sat there and listened, and he's a real easygoing, recon Marine, and I finally said, Gunny, I don't want to be here. And just like your eyebrows just did, his eyebrows went up too. and I told him why, and he goes, I get it. He goes, I would love to be over there too. However, this is where we are. We've got a job to do. There's a reason why Headquarters Marine Corps sent us here. And so I told him, I said, not a problem. I'm here and I will do the best job that I possibly can. And I did. And I ended up, getting recruiter awards and everything. And that was nice and everything. And I ended up becoming a career recruiter. Because I figured, well, I'm in the last leg of my career. Headquarters Marine Corps is not going to send me to a victory unit. I'm not going to deploy, so here I am. So I ended up changing my MOS to 8412, career recruiter. And I ended up staying here when my boss got promoted to Master Sergeant. They sent him on because I got promoted to gunny, and so it just kind of seemed like the natural thing, just Headquarters Marine Corps saw the logic in it. Just keep Jobe here, and he already knows the area, and so that's what they did.
How many years were you a recruiter?
I checked in here December 2003, went on production in February 2004. I got promoted along the way in January 2006, and became a career recruiter in March of 2007. So from 2007 to April 1st of 2010, which is when I retired. That's when that was the track I was on right there.
What do you consider your greatest military accomplishment or your most meaningful experience?
My most meaningful experience, I experienced a lot, from my time in. My most meaningful experience was earning the title Marine. Because I actually did, I looked that up, how many Marines are there, in the United States. And I actually looked it up, the numbers, which I thought was interesting. And this one website says of all living Americans, only 0.8% are Marines. So you think about it, I'm pretty proud of that. I accomplished a lot, picking up additional MOSs, working with Marines, training them. getting them back into the Marine Corps, whatever I was doing, I was proud of that. I really liked working with Marines. I did. I loved training Marines. It was fun. It was challenging. But I mean, if you really want to get right down to it, yeah, I wouldn't trade that.
I had another Marine that was also an F-18 fighter pilot on the podcast, and he said the same thing, which I think it's pretty impressive to be a fighter pilot, and yet his most meaningful was still becoming a Marine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's something that you always will be. Yeah. So it's kind of like a tattoo. It's always going to be there.
Yeah. You always hear Marines talk about it in the present tense. I am a Marine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've laughed about this before, that I think out of all the service members, okay, you'll always know who the Marines are, because they're always, you'll see a car and it'll have a vanity tag, with an eagle globe and anchor on it.
Yes.
They'll have so many stickers on their car. They'll have tattoos. They have all that ink gouged into their skin.
I always say no one's as proud as the Marines.
A very proud bunch.
Yes. What was it like for you being in the military for September 11th?
For September 11th. Well, I think like everybody else, it was a real rude awakening. Yeah, that was a real rude awakening.
Did you witness a shift in the military?
A shift. I know there were a lot of young men flooding the recruiting centers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine it was a lot like, Pearl Harbor, December 8th, the day after. It was, because there were, I knew recruiters, that I talked to, that they had applicants lined up out the door.
Wow.
Yeah, literally. It wasn't like they were having to get on, their phones, these recruiters getting on their phone and making cold calls, to these high school grads. They were flooded. There wasn't like there was a shortage for anybody that was wanting to join. And I talked to my boss, who he was a production recruiter. Now, this is before I was on recruiting duty. And he had said that there were a lot of prior service Marines that were calling him up, wanting to get back in the Marine Corps. And so I know recruiting was really good. And I was on instructor duty at the time, training reservists. And that was that first time they came in on their drill weekend, after 9/11. It was it was a wake-up call. Yeah, they were. It was a given that 4th Landingsport Battalion was going to deploy. There was no doubt about that, and they were going to play a crucial role in that. So it was, things got real serious. The training was always very serious, but everybody got real serious all of a sudden. Yeah, that was big time. I remember that, and I know that I was chomping at the bit, so to speak. I was wanting to deploy because I'd missed the Gulf War. So, yeah.
Are there any behaviors or skill sets that you learned in your career that you find have followed you outside in your civilian life?
Behaviors or skill sets? One of my jobs, collateral duties in the Marine Corps, was I was a small arms weapons instructor, 8552. And every Marine is a rifleman. That's what, you're taught in boot camp. And every Marine wants to shoot well. They don't want to do the minimum standard. For 2 reasons. You're Marines, and 2, the better you qualify, enhances your chance of promotion. So we always strive, the best. Along the way, I picked up this MOS, collateral MOS, that I did, on the side, as they needed a small arms weapons instructor. I enjoyed that a lot. I really did. I enjoyed teaching Marines, which as an instructor, it helps you, it gets you out of your shell, of talking to people. And two, it really enhances your confidence, on top of that. I liked teaching Marines how to shoot better. I also taught them how to shoot, fire, various weapon systems. I like that a lot. To this day, I still do that. I don't teach Marines, of course, anymore since I retired, but I still like going out and, going to the ranges and keeping sharp on something that I was taught in the Marine Corps. I really enjoy that a lot. It's relaxing, and it's something that I think every capable man should know how to do. Yeah.
I'd add women to that as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. A woman should know how to shoot. Yeah.
Honestly, part of the value I thought I was going to get out of the military was learning to be efficient with a weapon.
Right.
Just feeling comfortable and confident with it. And then I went and joined the Air Force. And that didn't happen. That was one of my surprises because, we shot one day of the entire basic training experience. One day that we had an active.
But they taught you sight alignment, sight picture, breathing, trigger control, right? You got those classes, right? So, but if you went to the class,
it's really skimmed the surface. It's tricky. I mean, they do give you a little bit of a foundation. I definitely knew more than before, and in my career field, I had the chance, or I needed to work with both handguns and rifles, which gave me a little more dynamic experience than the average.
It gave you a certain amount of confidence in the weapon, right?
Oh,
it got you started. It got you started is what I'm saying. It got you started.
It got me started.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So and so you could expand on that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
it gave me a foundation. It didn't make me proficient. I wouldn't say that I was anywhere near proficient.
Well, and that's the thing with marksmanship. We can get you on paper, so to speak, but after that, it just takes a lot of practice.
Yes.
It takes a lot of practice for, breathing, trigger control, sight alignment, sight picture. And it's like anything, whether you're playing golf or learning how to play a guitar, as long as you're applying the principles and you just keep practicing, you're only going to get better. And that's what I loved about learning that skill. I mean, I'd already hunted, before I joined the Marine Corps. I knew, I hunted. But the Marine Corps really helped out a lot. And also, too, one of the other MOSs that the other hat that I wore, so to speak, was I was a first-degree black belt martial arts instructor trainer for the Marine Corps.
Really?
Yeah.
This is Marine combatives or...
Right. It's the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. And the school is out at Quantico, Virginia. So I volunteered. I wanted to go do that and learn, the Marine Corps martial arts system, which every Marine, has to start out the tan belt and progress through, which helps your promotion. And it's just good. It's good training. I mean, Marines, should know that sort of thing.
That's cool.
And I as soon as they came up with that program back in 2000, I stuck my hand in the air and I wanted to get a part of that. And that was good training. Physically, that was more demanding than boot camp.
Wow. How long were you in that program?
Once I graduated from that school, December 7th, I graduated December 7th, 2001. Then I went back to my battalion and I put together classes. Now what I did was I didn't just train, like your lance corporals and how to be tan belts. I could and I did, but what I also did was I held courses on taking green belt Marines and making them instructors. So I would hold these classes at our battalion, and these Marines would come from the outlying sites. They had to be a green belt before they could be a green belt instructor. And so I took these Marines and worked with them, and it was a good experience, and the Marines really liked it a lot. very, very physically demanding. And they knew it by the time they first got there. Yeah, it was good stuff. It was a good challenge. And that's what I liked about this program, was that it was very challenging. It was good to get away from my everyday routine, working my everyday job, to go out and wear that hat for a while. And it was real motivating, very motivating.
How long did it take you to get to the black belt status?
Let's see, I reported in at Quantico, out at Camp Barrett, it was late October. So I was already a green belt. I was already a green belt instructor. So
before you went to the program?
Right. Well, I was a green belt instructor before I went to Quantico. I went, I earned my green belt in the Marine Corps Martial Arts program up at Selfridge Air National Guard Base up in Wisconsin.
Is Michigan.
Michigan, that was it. That was it. Yeah, right. Michigan.
Sorry, it took me a second.
Yeah, they started us out. I had to go up there, and when I first started in the program, and they worked with us and, beat us and everything else, and progressed from tan belt, then gray belt, then green belt. And then I had to learn how to be an instructor there. Okay. So then once I attained that, that MOS, then I volunteered to go to Quantico, Virginia, to be first degree black belt instructor trainer. So I would create these little green belt instructors.
And that was all additional duty type thing,
right? It was additional MOS, just like the small arms weapons instructor. These were additional hats that I wore.
Just because you wanted to develop yourself and to continue to.
Right. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to do something other than just working my everyday MOS. So I wanted to be a small arms weapons instructor because I love weapons, and I wanted to be a martial arts instructor trainer because that was a challenging thing to do, and I loved it.
Are there things you're doing now to keep you challenged?
Right now, I still go out and train with weapons. I go to the range and still keep my skills, sharp as far as as far as semi-automatic, pistols and rifles and things like that. So it's funny. It might sound odd, but it's relaxing. It's like some people, or go play golf, or something like that. I like going to the range or going out to the desert and setting up different distant targets and just lay down and start squeezing the trigger. It's good stuff.
Are there any books that have been influential to you in your life or your career?
I love history. I love American history. I found, out of all the books that I'd read, I fascinated by Major General Nathan Bedford Forrest. A very controversial person. But I found him to be fascinating because he grew up, in Tennessee, back in the hills, back in the, he had very little to no education at all. But he was a very smart man, common sense, logic, and very resourceful. And when the Civil War started, he volunteered as a private, joined the Confederate Army. But he was recognized as being very common sense, very logical, very fierce, and he was a man that got things done. So what he was charged with doing was starting his own cavalry regiment, and he was a wealthy man. By today's standards, he would have been a millionaire back then. So he raised his own regiment and set out, doing his job. And he was good to his men. He was very strict, but his men loved him, and he got results. And his adversaries, they feared him. And the fact that his contemporaries, many of them didn't think very much of him because, he was not a West Point, graduate, or, a VMI, graduate. He was son of a blacksmith, from Tennessee, backwater Tennessee. But once he got out there and he started doing his job, not only did his peers recognize, set up, and watch what he was capable of, but so did his adversaries. General William Tecumseh Sherman referred to him as that devil Forrest. And he said, General Sherman said, "I want him dead, even if it breaks the federal bank."
Whoa.
He was impressive. I mean, if a person ever hadn't read about General Nathan Bedford Forrest, I recommend a book. The book's called Bust Hell Wide Open. And if you've ever heard that term before, if you've not, what that means is busting hell wide open is literally busting hell wide open, and the demons are coming. It's like a biblical thing. And Sherman referred to him as that devil. And that's how bad his adversaries feared him.
What do you like about it, or him in particular, so much?
He came from nothing. Okay, he literally came from nothing. He was uneducated. Before the war, he was a businessman. He became rich. Because he had a lot of common sense. He knew how to get things done, whether he's in business or whether he was a major general. He didn't sit around and wait for things to fall in his lap or things to happen. He went out and made things happen. And that's a lot to be admired.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's really easy to sit around and speculate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I've heard them, what do they call them? Like the laptop warriors.
Right. Keyboard commandos.
Commandos, yes.
He was not one of those.
Right.
The thing was, that I liked about him is that his fellow officers, a lot of them, before the Civil War, they were part of these Confederate officers were also in the United States Army. A lot of the Union officers, that became, their adversaries later in the war, they had all served together during the Mexican War. So a lot of them were friends. So when the war came along, they parted ways, they went back home, they ended up fighting each other. General Forrest, Nathan Bedford Forrest, like I said, he was the son of a blacksmith. And he just didn't have the education. They said that actually the way he spoke was very raw. Just the misuse of the English language. He was that uneducated.
Wow.
Right. He could, but he was very logical, and like I said, he could read a battlefield better than most officers. He could take a look at a battlefield and the situation, what was going on. He could automatically react to it with great results. So if I were to say, if I were to rank him up there with other officers, I would say he would be right up there with General Thomas Jonathan Jackson, Stonewall Jackson, General Lee, and General Smedley Butler, George Patton. I just don't think that he really gets the recognition that he deserves, just because he was not a West Point graduate or a VMI graduate.
He's a little rebellious.
Right.
Off the beaten path.
Right. And another thing with him was if he didn't agree, with his fellow officer, about what needed to be done in the situation, he'd tell him, he'd let his, intentions be known, and he would go and do what he had to do to get the results. And he was stunning what he could do. So if you've never read about this man, it's good stuff. Bust Hell Wide Open is a great book.
Yeah, it sounds good. when it comes to leadership, because in the military we all have experiences being a leader and being under different types of leadership and command, what do you think are the most important aspects of leadership?
I learned early on, mission accomplishment and troop welfare. First thing it's got to get done is mission accomplishment. Yeah, that's the whole purpose. And as a leader, you really you have to know your job, and obviously, to effectively get your job done. If you have to go out on your own and study up, read books like what I was just telling you there, we call it professional military education, PME.
Sure. Same in the Air Force.
Right. Yeah. You can learn what they teach you at schools, but you really have to go out on your own and learn additional things. You can't just
leave it to PME.
Right. You just can't fake it, all the way through. You really have to go out and learn. Right. And that goes for anything, that you do, whether you're, forging knives or, working on cars, you have to learn every aspect of it.
Exactly like what you were saying to me earlier when I was talking about thinking I was going to become proficient with a weapon, when really the military gave me a foundation, but really it's just the foundation, and it's up to me to develop that if it's something I'm truly interested in.
If you're truly interested in becoming good at anything, you're going to have to put the time in and do it. Right.
Yes.
And the other one is, and the other aspect of leadership is getting to know. They told us, get to know your Marines, and that doesn't mean like what's your favorite color, what's your favorite beer, anything like that. Is like you have to get to know these Marines. Watch them to see how they operate. If they need any guidance, give them some guidance. If they're already doing really well, you tell them, I like what you're doing there. That looks good. Keep going. Give them some pointers and things like that. That motivates Marines.
Mentorship.
Mentorship.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because of the extent of your career, first of all, my first question is, I normally seem to meet Marines 4 years. Like they put in their 4 years and then they're done. Why do you think what's the difference between a Marine that stays and a Marine that leaves, puts in the 4 years?
It seems like the Marines that I dealt with, former Marines that I dealt with, who were in the individual ready reserve, and I was tasked with recruiting them back in. When I would call these Marines, I would call them up and say, hey, my name's, Gunny Jobe, or I was staff sergeant at the time and I was a production recruiter. Just start out a conversation just like, you meet anybody. And I would, kind of develop a rapport there. And then I would ask them, so why did you get out of the Marine Corps? And at this day and age, back then, I would ask them, and it was almost invariably that they would say, I got tired of deploying. These Marines, and I was tasked with finding infantry Marines to put back in. And these Marines were, they were almost like back to back. They would go to Iraq, come back to Pendleton or 29 Palms, wherever they were stationed, and they would train, and then they'd head right over to Afghanistan. So it's just kind of back and forth. So they would always tell me, it's like, hey, I loved the Marine Corps. I really did. I had a lot of good friends. I learned a lot. But it just got hard. All that, deploying. And a lot of these Marines were, they're young Marines. They get married young. They start out a family. And it just got tough. The wife and the kids just didn't get to see them. And it wasn't that they didn't like the Marine Corps. They loved it. I only had one guy that told me Well, that was a lot of swear words.
Oh my!
I called him up, and as soon as I said, who I was, he just started throwing F-bombs all over the place,
He didn't want to talk to you.
I kind of had to hold the phone back, and that was the only time, the whole time I was a production recruiter, that this guy, he told me F you and F the Corps and F this, and I don't ever want to even F you, and don't you ever effing call me again. And I was like, so what you're saying is you're not interested, right? Yeah, and F you. I was like, roger that, good to go. And I hung up, made an annotation, don't call this guy again. But all these other, individual, our Marines, I could sit there and talk to them even after they'd made it clear that they weren't coming back, because they got out, they did their 4 years, and they come back and they're using the GI Bill to go to college. Or they're, working a job or whatever. And, they just, kind of moved on, with their life. But never heard one of them say that they hated it. Yeah. Yeah, that was good. That was a good experience for him. Yeah.
That was pretty meaningful to you to connect with those Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was, I could sit there on the phone and talk to them, even after they did. They made it clear, that I've moved on, and that's just my past now. But I could sit there and talk to him on the phone, for 10 minutes or whatever. Just have a good time talking to him, sharing stories, and yeah.
That camaraderie, right?
Yeah.
One of the other unique things about the amount of time that you spent in the Marines is that you got to work with a wide range of people as well, because you worked with Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
How is that, or what did you learn working with Vietnam vets and then kind of bridging over into the newer generation?
Yeah, the Vietnam vets that I worked for, back in the day, you could learn some things from them. They were pretty harsh, but you didn't take it personal, They were. If they could see that you wanted to learn, they loved that. They love that. And they would. They'd teach you everything they knew. I also loved, hearing, their experiences, what they encountered over there. And, that really liked that a lot. They had a lot to share. Interesting stories, funny stories. Yeah, they were a good bunch of guys. Yeah, that's and then of course they all started retiring, about mid-late 80s, and then there was that transition into the newer Marines. I still remember, a couple of master sergeants that I knew back in the day that they were motor transport, and I liked them a lot. If they saw that you were motivated, yeah, they'd be there for you. They'd teach you everything they knew. Yeah, and they were good people.
What do you say when people thank you for your service?
It's it catches me, off guard when I hear it sometimes. Like I said, I didn't get to deploy, and that was a bummer. But there's nothing I could do about that.
Do you think about that when people thank you for your service?
That's the first thing I think of.
Is that you should have deployed?
I don't go into all that. I just smile and I thank them, you know, and make some small talk with them. I appreciate, you know, what they do, you know, their sentiments. It's important. I think it's important that service members are recognized for everything that they do. Because, like I said, there were I know these infantry Marines that I used to talk to, they need some recognition.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree. There was a certain point in my career where people, when they would thank me for my service, and it's funny because my thoughts are, well, I'm not a Marine, you know. Like, I did deploy, but that's not, to me, I guess it took me some time to realize that really what somebody's saying when they thank you for your service is that you're really willing to give up the civilian life and to learn what it means to be a dedicated military member,
right,
and put your time in the service. It's
right.
not really about who's most deserving of the recognition.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not so much who's most deserving. I look at it this way: it's like we're all one team. Doesn't matter if you're a butcher or baker or candlestick maker, you know, or infantry or whatever. You know, we all work together. Motor transport, you know, they may not be infantry, but they're part of that logistics train that brings out the beans, bullets, and Band-Aids.
Yeah.
You know, so without motor transport, you're not getting your beans and your bullets and your Band-Aids. You may be supply, right? And once again, you know, they're the ones that are getting your beans and your bullets and your Band-Aids.
Right.
So without all this support, you know, these support personnel, the Marines that are out there, you know, or Army or whoever's pulling triggers, they can't get your job done. You know, admin, dispersing, you're not getting paid. Well, guess what? You're not getting paid. Family back home's not eating. So that's the thing that I really think that needs to be impressed upon those that just aren't aware or don't realize, is that we're one team and we're all working together to accomplish a mission.
I do think it's really important to mention that you don't necessarily understand the big picture of what a small job can really impact. Like, even if we take you not deploying, however, what kind of impact did you have, just one person? First of all, with all the training that you did, it's difficult to quantify how many lives you may have saved of Marines, or that you at least helped impact them to stay safe, to come home, to accomplish the mission. And then if you take on top of it being a recruiter, like, how many people did you bring in that then went and served the mission and served the bigger picture? Like, it's hard to really quantify how much impact you really had in your career, deployment or not.
Right. Yeah, you know, it's like there's just a lot that goes into it, you know, teaching weapons or teaching martial arts or anything like that. Whether, you know, as far as pulling a trigger, you know, what you taught somebody, or teaching somebody martial arts, you know, whether they use that or not. I think when you teach somebody a skill, it gives them a level of confidence. Okay. So whether, you know, they're going to put, you know, an enemy in an arm bar or a figure four variation chokehold, or, you know, whether, you know, they're, you know, firing that M240 Golf machine gun effectively, you know, those are all good things. But anytime you learn a skill, you learn confidence. And if you learn confidence, you'll be able to do your job better. You know, so all of that, it all comes into play. So when you teach Marines, or, you know, whatever branch of service, you're teaching them confidence. If a person has confidence, they can do their job. And I think that is the bigger picture. You know, I know Marines don't have a problem with confidence. You know, they're probably, if you're familiar with Marines, the confidence is not something that they lack, especially if you put them in a group.
You could say,
you're going to remember them.
A lot of that confidence has come from the experiences that they've had, the training that they've had, going through difficult circumstances, doing things they didn't want to do, but now they look back on it and they know they can do it. So then it brings that bigger whole picture confidence like you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, if you've ever been around, one new, Marine that just graduated from boot camp. Yeah. Oh my gosh. His confidence level is up to 11. Okay. It's exceeded 10. It's got over 11. Now you got a bunch of, new Marines, reporting into their, their MOS school. And, you talk about a rambunctious, bunch, because, it's like, they're basic Marines. But the confidence that those guys have, God, it's crazy. Yeah, they've not even really got into learning their, their MOS yet. But boy, what those drill instructors pump those young Marines' heads full of, good Lord.
You think it's a little bit of an overcompensation?
Well, it's good. Because when they get to their MOS school, now they're ready to go. They're hardcore. They're hard charging and everything. And, so yeah, you talk about confidence. Boy, I'll tell you what.
Once they get through boot camp, then they can wear the title Marine. So, and if I'm hearing that that's more powerful than any other accomplishment in your career, then it makes sense that they're excited and want to tell everybody and hey, I'm a Marine.
Right. For a lot of, earning the title Marine, is that's the pinnacle right there. Everything else is just gravy. I feel like, I learned some things and I accomplished, I'm proud of what I did. But yeah.
Well, Gary Jobe, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and sharing your experience. It's been a great interview, so thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks for having me on.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found a new mindset to help you excel. For more information on Gary Jobe's career or to share what you learned, please visit www.tamfpodcast.com/JOBE.